We're going to be in Ecclesiastes this morning, if you want to go ahead and turn there.
It's there.
We'll be in Ecclesiastes, and mostly what we're going to look at is in chapter 2 this morning. To get our minds going, or to get us thinking a little bit, some of the events that we've been seeing go on in the world that we live over the past little bit made me sort of think about how wise, I guess, we really are. You know, some of the things that I've seen, you all have seen the commercial, I think, or I hope you have anyway. I don't remember who the air conditioning place they're advertising for, but these four boys walk up to the door and say, "We're here to fix your air conditioner." And they look like they just crawled out from under the shade tree. Got their shovel and all that. I hope you have seen that before. You know, when things happen, some of the things that I've seen go on in the world, it kind of reminds me of that commercial. Those three out there, and they kind of elbowing each other, saying, "And this is a good idea." You know, and that kind of worries me.
Yeah.
You know, some of the things that I see that people elbow each other and say, "Hey, this is a good idea." I don't really know that they think things through every time.
That's right.
And here's we look at Solomon here. You know, in chapter 1, Solomon gives us who he is and his qualifications for the book of Ecclesiastes, the things he's going to tell us, and the direction he's going to take us here, and some of the things he's going to try to help us understand. And in verse 2, he begins to sort of give us an idea of what he's looking at and the things that he's trying to do. In chapter 2, I mean. He said, "I said in mine heart, go to now. I will prove thee with mirth, therefore enjoy pleasure. And behold, this also is vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of mirth, what doeth it? I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting my heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life." We're going to go all the way down through here, but as we begin to look at this, you know, every person has a longing to figure out what their purpose or their happiness is. You know, they're searching for those things. We're looking for those things in the world that we live. Solomon was no different, and this is exactly what he set his heart toward. He's looking for his purpose and for the things that bring him happiness in this world. And here in these first 3 verses, he tells us, I'm going to seek pleasure.
Right.
You know, we live in a pleasure-seeking world.
That's right.
We're looking for whatever it may be to bring us pleasure, to make us happy for a moment, or whatever it may be. You know, as I looked and studied at this, I found what Solomon, one day of his pleasure, one day of his partying, what they prepared for him that day. In 1 Kings 4, verse 22 and 23, it says, "And Solomon's provision for one day was 30 measures of fine flour, 60 measures of meal, 10 fat oxen, and 20 oxen out of the pasture, 100 sheep, beside harts and roes, and fallow deer, and fatted fowl." Now, the measures of the meal and the flour were 10 bushels for each one of those measures. So if there was 30 measures, there was 300 measures, 300 bushels of one and 600 bushels of the other. 20 cattle, grade A prime cattle, for one day now. Think about that. And then 10 fat oxen, and then they had deer and roebucks and all the fowl that you could think of, all kinds of birds that you could think of. That was one day's partying. And as I read and looked at this, they said they thought that would probably feed somewhere close to 20,000 people in one day. Imagine Solomon's parties. Imagine these parties in that day. And we sort of see that same mindset in the day today, don't we? We see people think that, hey, if I go out and I throw myself into these things, if I throw myself into partying, if I throw myself into wine, if I throw myself into crowds, then I'm going to find what I've been looking for. I'm going to find the direction in life that I want to go. I'm going to find the direction that I think I should be going in life. But Solomon here figured it out. He figured out that what's the use? What's the use in it? He said all it does is eat up your resources.
Right.
All it does is eat up your resources. So he knew that that wasn't the direction that he wanted to go. So you look on down into verse 4, and he said he changed his direction here. He said, I made me great works. I builded me houses. I planted me vineyards. I made me gardens and orchards, and I planted trees in them of all kinds of fruits. I made me pools of water, to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidservants. Let me stop there just a second in verse 6. I made me pools of water, to water therewith the wood that bring me forth trees. So the next thing that he threw himself into was building. And when I thought about what Solomon done here, what he was doing here, I thought about Biltmore. Biltmore House over in Asheville. You know, we go over there every now and then. We're able to go through and see the grounds and all the things that was there, that great big farm, and all the fine things that are in the house and how they've decorated and how they built. And it takes just about an hour or something just to walk through the place. And if I lived there, somebody'd have to tie a string to me so I could find my way back, you know, and all these things. That was the same way Solomon was. He throwed himself into these things. As a matter of fact, it took 14 years for Solomon's house to be built. Can you imagine what he built in that time frame? What he built there at that moment, 14 years of building. And then he built houses for his wives. He built vineyards. He built pools. He built all these things, parks and all these things. He throwed himself into all that. And he found out it still didn't satisfy.
Right.
It still didn't fulfill that place in his life.
That's right.
That he was looking for. So he goes on down in verse 7. He says, I got me servants and maidservants. I had great possessions. Wait a minute. I got me servants and maidservants and had servants born in my house. Also I had great possessions of great and small cattle above all that were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold, and the peculiar treasure of the kings and the providences. I got me men singers and women singers, and the delight of the sons of men as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. So he stretched out and he began to acquire wealth. You know, that's the other thing that this world does. He tries to acquire that wealth, those possessions, those things that make us feel like we're going to be popular, or we're going to have the easy life, or whatever it may be in our mindset as we begin to do these things. Solomon tried these same things. He filled his life, he filled his world up with these possessions. You know, he tells us that he had slaves, he had herds, he had gold and silver, he had his own personal bands. And he went a step further than that. 1 Kings 11:3 it says, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines. So he had 1,000 women running around his house. You wonder about how wise he was. I do anyway. I do. But anyway, he searched everything he had. Anything that this world says will make you happy, Solomon tried. Solomon had. He had it in his house. He had it all around him. You know, as I looked and I read and I thought about this, I thought to myself, you know, old Hugh Hefner wasn't the first one that had bunnies running around his house.
Yeah.
When you had 700 women running around in there, they all had to be vying for his attention because, you know, in my mind I kind of figured it up. If you spent one day with each one of them, you wouldn't get back to that one for nearly 3 years to be able to come back and talk to the same one again, or spend time with the same one again. So you know they were all vying for his attention. So it just kind of blew my mind to think about all the things that Solomon was doing and all the things that Solomon had and all the things that Solomon tried to fill that place in his life or to find his purpose or to find his direction and all the things that you look at this and you think about all the things that are going on in the world. All the things that are being tried now, all the direction, all the things that are going on, people spending their money on things that I would kind of lean back and say, now, I don't know what kind of idea that is. That's them boys under the tree, and this is a good idea, and I don't really think so. And I guess maybe what got my mind thinking about this was the events of this week where some decided to go down and visit, this past week, visit the Titanic. You know, in my mind, I'm just sitting there thinking, I don't know that this is a good idea.
Right.
It's down there for a reason. I don't need to see it. I'll look at it on pictures. That's okay with me. But we have these mindsets, and we look for these things. And he found out there in verse 9, some of the things that come about because of all this. In verse 9 he says, "So I was great and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. And whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor. And this was my portion of all my labor. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I'd labored to do. And behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit. And there was no profit under the sun." Now Solomon had everything that anybody could ever desire. He had everything that this world says we should chase after. He had everything that Satan tells us in this world will bring us happiness, will bring us fame, will bring us fortune, will bring us all the things that's thrown at us. Solomon had every one of those things. And in verse 11 there he says, "And behold, all was vanity."
Right.
Vexation of spirit.
Right.
Those are not the things that'll make you happy. He did find out that he was popular. He said, "I was great. I was increased. I was great." We know that. He said, "I had more than anybody else had been before me. I'd done all those things, but it was useless and futile whenever it come right down to the end."
That's right.
What he found was it's not worth it. It was kind of like a candle burning on both ends. It was just all ash at one point in time. It wasn't there. So he quit looking for these things. And in verse 12 he says, "And I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do that cometh after the king? Even that which hath been already done. Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly, as far as light excelleth darkness." So the next thing he threw himself into was wisdom. He decided that he would strive for those things. Romans 1:21 and 22 says, "Because that, when they knew God, they glorified Him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools."
Right. That's right.
Sometimes as we seek after those things in this world, we think we're gaining. We think we're getting certain things. We think we're getting wisdom. We think we're gaining the respect and things of this nature of this world. But in reality, we're just becoming fools. We're just searching after things that are vain. Searching after things that are going to one day fade away. And Solomon sort of comes to that conclusion. In verse 14 he says, "The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness. And I myself perceived also that one event happeneth to them all." So here Solomon in that verse, he says, at least the wise man sort of understands what he's getting into, unlike the fool, is what he's telling us. And then he says, but one event happens to everybody. "And then said I in my heart, as it happeneth to this fool, so happeneth even to me. And why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart that this also is vanity. For there is no remembrance of the wise more than the fool forever, seeing that which now is in the days to come shall all be forgotten. And how dieth the wise man as the fool? Therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of spirit. So here, as he says, he's trying to gain that wisdom, he's trying to gain those things. He's figured out that there's one fate for everybody. The truth is, death waits for none, doesn't it?
That's right.
Death waits for none. And each and every one of us will one day pass through those portals. And Solomon here is telling us, he said, what good is it for all the things that I've done, all the things that I've acquired, all the things that I have, all the wisdom that I've gained, all the things that I thought I was enjoying at that point in time? What good are all those things? Because I'm going to die. I'm going to die. You know, we each need to come to that point, I guess, at some time, don't we? Mm-hmm. Realization that we can chase after the things of this world. We can search after its happiness and the things that it says will make us popular and be seen as great in somebody's eyes. But it's all going to pass away.
That's right.
One of these days, Lord's going to come call me home. When I leave this place, I won't leave exactly like I did when I came in. You know, hopefully, who knows? Kay may not put a suit on me or a set of clothes, whatever it may be. I may leave exactly as I did, but came in. But that's all I'll take with me, is whatever she puts on me. A pair of old blue jeans or bibs or a suit, whatever it may be. That's all I'll leave this world with.
Right.
Somebody else, Solomon here, as he looks at these things and he's thinking about it, he says, somebody else is going to come in and spend everything that I've acquired. Mm-hmm. They're going to have control over everything that I got. And who's going to know whether they'll be wise with it or whether they be foolish with it? Whether they come in and just spend it all in one day, or whether they're going to try to make it last and make it into something that is good for those around them. He didn't know, but he said, I found out that it's the same way. Mm-hmm. And he even tells us there in those verses that we all have one fate, and because of this, he began to become bitter and cynical about all those things that he had looked after.
Right.
All those things that he'd desired. And I tell Kay every now and then, I tried to save for my retirement so we'd be taken care of and things when I finally decided to do that. And I told her, I said, I don't know why I save. I said, one of these days I'm going to die and some other fuzzy leg will just come in here and spend everything that I've worked hard for. There makes no sense in me doing that. And we kind of have that mindset sometimes, don't we? And that's sort of what Solomon here is thinking. Mm-hmm. Why do those things? Somebody else is going to be the one to spend it. I'm going to be gone. I'm going to be dead and gone. Brad will be grinning, I guess. He'll be grinning.
Laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah, all the way to the bank. In verse 24 then, Solomon sort of changes tune here. He changes tune with all the things that he's been doing. There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw, that it was from the hand of God. For who can eat, or who else can hasten thereunto more than I? For God giveth to a man that is good in his sight, wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner he giveth travail, to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This also is vanity and vexation of the spirit. So Solomon here came to realize that everything that he has that is good came from God.
That's right.
Everything that he had. You know, sometimes we look around in this world and old Satan will dangle that carrot. He'll say, hey, you really need to sample this. You really need to go in this direction. You really need to have these things. If you ever want to be happy, if you ever want to be in the in crowd, if you ever want to have everything that your heart desires, you need to go this way. And when we decide to do that, when we bite on that carrot, the next thing we know, we find ourselves with a big hole in us. Maybe happy for a moment, maybe fun for a season, as the Bible tells us, but at some point in time it all goes away.
Right.
Solomon figured that. He knew those things. He found those things out. If anybody had the opportunity or the means to do it, I'd say Solomon was able to do it. If he was having parties that there was 20,000 people at, I believe he probably sampled it in a big way. And he figured out there's nothing better than God.
That's right.
Nothing better than God.
That's right.
When you find God, Solomon here, I believe, would tell us that you find a fulfilled purpose. You know, he was looking for his purpose. He was looking for those things that satisfy. I believe when we find God, we find that fulfilled purpose. We become a child of God. We receive eternal life. David says, "My cup runneth over." You know, and I've figured that out as I've gone through life. That's exactly the way God does us. Our cup runs over. He fills us up, and we have a purpose in life. We begin to realize that our labor is not in vain. You know, we can acquire great fortunes and have big houses and all those things, and we can leave all those things behind, but we can be a witness. We can sow seeds in this world. The Bible tells us they won't return in vain. God will use those things. So our purpose then, our labor then is not in vain. We can sow those things and use those things in this world, and God can use them in this world, even after we're gone. And as we come to know Him and enjoy Him, we begin to realize the results of what we have ends in love, joy, and peace.
That's right.
You know, the things that this world doesn't have. You look at this world and there's no love out there. The way they go at each other's throats, the way that things are carried on, there's no love. There's no joy. There's no big smiles and grins and joy from the things that God gives. And there's absolutely no peace. No peace in this world. But we can have all those things when we choose, as Solomon found, the one true and living God in heaven. We can have those things. But you see, there's a choice. There's a choice. That's the reason I titled the message, "Which Are You Under?" The sun. That's where Solomon was looking. He tried everything under the sun. And he come to realize there's nothing better than being under the sun.
That's
S-O-N.
right. That's right.
Which one are you under this morning? Are you under the sun? S-U-N? Or are you living under the sun this morning? Because that's a choice that we each and every one have to make. We have to decide in our lives which one we're going to follow, which direction we're going to go, what we're going to desire and strive to do throughout the rest of our lives. I don't have one for that. Sorry. I forgot where I was going. But we need to follow Him and desire to live for Him.
That's exactly right.
Which one are you following this morning? You would stand with me.